Camera's rolling.
Baby, I'm too young to know any better, but I guess I'm just too old to care. I'm waiting on the morning light to clear the air. Now the sky is hung with regret, letting go that you pay flags. All the silence that keep me coming back. I'm the one that you hated. You know, the one you didn't want to believe. The one that you hated. Take a look at it now. I'm the mess you created. The one that you hated. Mother Baker said, bury your secret. And your gold and souls are black. You get to love with all your footsteps running back. I'm the one that you hated. You know, the one you didn't want to believe. The one that you hated. Take a look at it now. I'm the mess you created. The one. Now the sky is hung with regret, letting go that you pay flags. All the silence that keep me coming back. I'm the one that you hated. You know, the one you didn't want to believe. The one that you hated. Take a look at it now. I'm the mess you.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Dad Talk. Let me get this thing taken down off the screen. There we go. It is a new week. How is everybody doing? We got the music going, got the adrenaline pumping. Do me a favor, guys. Let's start off the new week right. If you're watching the show right now, pull out your phone, like, share, subscribe. Make sure to comment. Welcome people as they're coming into the broadcast. I can tell you more and more people over just this past month, man, you'd be shocked how many messages and comments that are coming out about they never knew that this platform existed. And we're talking about things that so many people are going through. We need to make sure that we get this out there so we can get our people in here and make some change. That's what we're wanting to do with this platform. Many ways you can support this show right here down at the bottom. Dad Talk Today, no spaces. That's Cash App, Venmo, and Patreon. Also, there is super chats, super stickers, and memberships on YouTube. We got the same thing over on Facebook. With that being said, good morning, everybody. Mr. Garza, what's going on, brother?
Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. Good morning. Oh, my gosh. I need some more Coca-Cola.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons, like, man, I have not been feeling great. I don't know where you guys are. I think this might be like a national thing that's going on. We are supposed to be getting rain all week this week. Is it raining where you're at?
Yeah, it's supposed to be freezing rain today. My wife was just telling me, she was like, can't you just take me to work?
Dude, I can't stand it. I want to know, have you ever seen the rain? Good morning, everybody. Glad that you guys are here. This is one of those conversations. I know that both me and you grew up with our fathers. We had them in our life. But one of the common things I'm starting to see, especially after yesterday's show, guys, if you didn't see yesterday's show, go and check out that with Jimmy. There was a lot more in Jimmy's story that he didn't get to tell on the podcast that we talked about once we got off. And for those of you that enjoyed it and kept saying you wanted to see him come back, I've got good news for you. Every Sunday, Jimmy's going to be doing a podcast with me on here, and we're going to have a new topic going on. He's going to start talking about dating advice and what it's like, some of the signs that you got to be watching out for. But, dude, I found out, Robert, Jimmy was also in a boy band back in the early 90s, like that opened up for Boys II Men. He's one of the real life figures from the movie Magic Mike. Dude, he was so built and everything. They made him a Chippendale at one point in time. He's friends with Channing Tatum. And I forget the character that was in Magic Mike, but they portrayed him in there. Just hearing this guy's story. But I think it kind of played back at the stereotype that we see. A lot of times we see more women speaking out about it, kind of like Katie Haas, or we have Mandalorian that'd be down there in the comments. But Jimmy was 18 years old when he found out his stepdad that he was told was his biological father was not his dad. And by the time he found out where his dad had already passed away. And he was hearing about memories from other people, man. That pisses me off so bad.
Wow.
Because there's so many of these guys in here that show up and say, I wanted a father. I didn't have a father. The deadbeat dad is a real thing in some cases. I say it's the minority of cases. It really is. But occasionally we have the people that get in here and they got some aggression. They got some bad feelings because they'll say, look, man, my dad never wanted anything to do with me. He wasn't there. And I didn't know what it was like to be a dad. I didn't have anything to base it off of. I mean, what's that make you think of, dude, when there's these dads that are fighting tooth and nail to be inside of their kids' lives, and then there's these guys that just completely take off and want nothing to do with their kids?
They're missing out on a lot of stuff. I mean, I remember very early on, my dad had us, putting siding on a trailer house and working on cars. And I remember at a really, really early age, he was always giving me stuff that was broke, like a toaster. I remember that's probably one of my first memories. He gave me a toaster and some tools and told me to take it apart. And I took it apart and he somehow fixed it. I don't even remember how he fixed it, but he's like, look, here's the little wires. I guess a wire broke, they have to all connect, whatever. And after that, I just love taking things apart. And now I can pretty much disassemble a car and whatever else. It's not that he taught me how to disassemble a car. He gave me the starting tools and confidence to that I could take something apart and put it back together, and no matter what it was. And so I think a father's, teaching you that at a very early age. And it's not only that, it's all kinds of things that they teach.
But I want you to think about that. You're saying that your father taught you how to do this, even though he just kind of stepped back and gave you some of the tools. That is what dads do. They teach their kids independence. Like, I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to kind of tell you the direction that I want you to go in. But at the same time, I'm going to step back. I put it this way, man. I remember my daughter when right before she went to graduate high school, she was like, Daddy, I did good. I did good for myself. You didn't have to help me with my homework. You didn't have to wake me up for school. You didn't have to do anything like that. My mom did. My mom would help me. But she said, but you didn't do that when I was at the house. And I said, what's your grades? All A's. I was like, how many times was you late for school? I wasn't. How many times was you late for work? I wasn't. Like, okay, I did my job then. I taught you how to do it. You didn't need somebody constantly sitting there saying this is what you do. I expected it. Now, there was plenty of times, like if I need some help with homework and it's a problem that I know they really couldn't understand. But it's one of those things that you got to sit back and show your kids. That is what we are doing. We are providing a roadmap for these kids because we only have them for a short period in time. 18 years, I'm telling you guys, by the time your child is born, they will be 18 like that. And then they'll be moving out of the house. They're teenagers. They are going to live their own life. And we are providing them that roadmap to be able to take care of themselves after they get out of the house. And I think too many of these kids are getting coddled. They're not being taught these lessons, and they're getting everything gave to them. And I'll be honest with you. I know there's a lot of parents that think that's what being a good parent is. That's making a kid entitled. That is not parenting. It's just not. And I want to say very early on, too, for these guys, again, both of us had our dads, but for these guys that say, I didn't have a father to show me how to be a father. One of the first things I want to tell you guys, because I have seen the guys that end up having a kid, but they didn't have a dad to show them some of them lessons growing up. So they're a little intimidated by that process. Like, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to mess up. I don't know if I'm doing it right or whatever. And it intimidates them. Let me tell you something, brother. You're going to make those mistakes. I don't care if you would have had a dad in your life to show you some of this stuff, you still would have made those mistakes. That's what we do as parenting or as parents, as fathers. The thing that you got to remind yourself of is when you make that mistake, how can I be better? Always be cognizant and open to the idea that I am not a perfect person. But I love my child and I want to do what's best. And if I see somewhere that I was wrong, I'm going to correct it. And I might even tell them this is it because they are learning with you. Nobody has a perfect roadmap to fatherhood. Nobody. And so I know you might say that I didn't have anything to base it off of. But dude, That doesn't matter. I've met so many of these guys that didn't have a father growing up and they become fathers themselves. And they're some of the best fathers I've ever met in my life, Robert.
Yep. That's because they know what they were missing and they figure it out and they put it in their lives and they give it to their kids and stuff like that. And I'm not saying give your kids everything. There's a lot of things you can do to help them with their independence. One thing I did with my daughters is that very early on, like in kindergarten, first grade, they would come home and be like, look at the picture I drew you. And instead of being like, oh, I love it, it's amazing, I let them, so I taught them not to have other people praise them. So when they brought me a picture of something, I'm like, wow, you must be really proud of that. And they'd look at it and they're like, I am proud of it. And I'm like, oh, good, you know? And so it taught them to be confident and praise believe in themselves. They're not looking for your own opinion about it. And now, oh my gosh, they're forces to be reckoned with because they don't really need people's recognition or anything like that. They're confident in what they do.
Absolutely. Wanda Best here on YouTube said 3 basic stages of life: dependence to independence to interdependence. We have progress through each to reach a healthy, mature adult. Very true. Tom Lowe, man, great to see you this morning. Give a little hand clap there for Tom. Everybody, welcome Tom to the show. He said, it fed me. Never wanted to make those mistakes. Had a great village coming up. And that's the thing, dude. Have you heard the people that always make excuses? Well, I didn't have this as a kid, or my mom or my dad did this to me. And so that's my excuse for everything there in life. That should be your motivation to do the exact opposite. I have seen the people that have turned that pain into purpose and said, I am not going to be there. Shoot, dude. I got the book right over here. David Goggins. Have you guys ever heard of David Goggins? You want to talk about a freak. Guy runs like 100-mile marathons, signed up for the SEALs just so that he could go through Hell Week. But he talks about the challenges that he had with his father growing up. And that's, dude, it's one of my #1 interviews there on YouTube outside of the one I did with Ronnie Shirley. His brother came on the show, Trunis Goggins. I don't know if we got any Goggins fans out there, but you guys should listen to that. But he was one of those that said, I'm not going to be that person. I'm not going to let that be a reflection of my life and pass on to me. Watch what I can do with it. Guy's one of the biggest influencers out there. I think he's one of Joe Rogan's favorite people, man. And he turned that pain into purpose. I think it's amazing.
Yep.
But yeah, somebody said David Goggins is a beast. Check that out, dude. Trunis Goggins. That was a great one. Mike said anything and everything I tried to teach my kids or bond with them was dismissed and taken away by my alienating ex and her team of lawyers who manipulated the kids' minds against a good father. Dude, that's the sad part about it. You know, I want to be honest, fair, straight down the line. When we talk about equality, we're not trying to create any biases in here or one-sided arguments. We will talk about it in a fair way. I do believe majority of the time it's dads getting screwed, but there was a time where I think a lot of dads did leave the house. And unfortunately, it's those antiquated laws and with those dads that I think they are still judging you guys upon now. At the same time, Robert, you know how many adults I've had come to this show that said they went their whole life thinking their dad didn't want them or that he was a deadbeat. They listened to everything that their mom said, and then they find him and find out it was a completely different story.
Well, they find out that Santa Claus isn't real or the boogeyman isn't real, right? It's like you say, a boogeyman's under your bed. Some parents do it to scare their kids. You know, you better go to sleep or boogeyman's going to get out from under your bed, whatever. And they do the same thing to children. They create a whole narrative, but what they don't understand is that creates all kinds of internal and mental issues later on in life, or daddy issues if you're a girl, or abandonment and stuff like that. It causes a whole lot of things. And I think that's kind of where we need to do is educate people too, that it causes all kinds of issues. This is not about you anymore. You have kids. It's about them. Your life is no longer about you.
All right, I'm going to try this just because you're the person I got on here with me right now. What are some of the things your dad taught you, Robert?
Confidence, that he believed in me. Like, it was pretty interesting. I mean, just you talking about this stuff, like I was scared of heights. he would take me up a mountain halfway and see, look, there's nothing here. It's not very scary, and would go up a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And then he made a game out of it, would slide down on this cardboard thing or whatever. But it was scary at first, but confidence, to always finish something that you start. That was a big thing, is that, look, he's like, if you start something, you better finish it. Like, don't do it halfway. You have to do it all the way and to the best of your ability. And if you don't know, and this was a pretty neat thing that he taught me too, because he was really good at pool, shooting billiards. And he's like, every time you get in here, he was just like, yes, you can just hit the balls and hope something goes in or whatever, or you can always aim at something and concentrate the most you can about this. And when you do, then shoot the ball. Every time I played billiards, I got better and better and better, even if I missed, because I realized why I missed. The stick was too high, whatever it was. So he gave me the tools very early on to be able to give, I guess, self-awareness. And always finish that.
So let's get the opposite side of that question. What were some of the things your dad taught you or did when you was growing up that you did opposite?
So he worked all the time. Now, I know he had to. He ended up early on, he was a truck driver. He ended up breaking his neck. And so then he couldn't really work. But while he did, I remember him always being gone. But I always remembered him coming home because he'd always bring these trucks and they were massive and had fruit and stuff like that. But he always worked all the time. So that was one thing. Spanking, his whole generation, my mom, his dads, everybody, they were all into spanking. I knew I was not going to spank my kids whenever they got older. There was really no need. So I figured out a way that you can say, I'm really upset, or, I'm really disappointed in what you just did. Even my older kids will tell you, I probably raised my voice at them, and they're already grown, like literally five times in their whole life. So, but they taught me just actually by viewing what they did and I didn't like, I changed it for my own kids. So it's kind of like you just see what you don't like and you just change it.
Well, see, you base it upon what you had growing up. And so that's why I can sympathize with these guys. They're like, ugh, I didn't have a dad to show me what I want to do and what I don't want to do. I don't have anything to base it off of. I just have, this on one side. And you need it. I mean, it was Tupac Shakur that says, look, my mom couldn't teach me how to be a man. You need a man to show you how to be a man. And there's a lot of truth to that. I would say for some of you guys that never had that, even if you're older right now, you might think, oh, I'm okay. I don't need that masculine role model in my life. Yes, you do. You need that masculinity. You need that role. I'm going to tell you, dude, there is a lot of benefits that come alongside of having something like that. You bring up something that I can definitely relate to, the spanking. I got my butt tore up as a kid. Now, even though I said that I wasn't going to do that, looking back at it, did I deserve it? Yeah, I probably should have got it a lot more. But that was one of those things that I said I didn't want to do when I got older. Now, is there times that I look at this younger generation and think that that kid could deserve a spanking? Yes, there is. At the same time, I wanted to do that different. And I believe that if you have those conversations and that bond with the kids, you don't really need that. It's crazy, dude. I mean, I think we all came from a generation that spanking, it was probably what the majority of parents did. Nowadays, it's taking away the cell phone.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that? We're just going to take away the iPhone.
My mom and dad, my mom was the worst. She'd get anything that was close to her and whoosh, like fly swatter, chancla. Oh, yeah. The chancla is real.
Did they ever make you pick your own switch?
My grandmother did. She had a willow tree outside, and she did that once. After that, I went and shaved that willow tree. I went and chopped like all the branches from the bottom. Oh, she was so mad about that too, but
Dude, that was a every Sunday thing for me before I would go into church. I had to go pick my own switch because if I acted up in church, they knew they had it. But I learned from a very early age to get the big one because the big one takes longer to swing and it's completely when they got those little skinny ones that maybe have like a leaf or something attached at the very bottom that gives it a little bit of leverage, those are the ones that I feared.
Yeah.
Don't ever wear shorts if you're going to church. You're not supposed to anyway. That's the way I was raised. But yeah, man, if they get a hold of your legs, holy crap, that hurt. But speaking to these guys, again, find those masculine role models. I think one of the most common things for the guys that say they didn't have their dad in their life that stepped in and fulfilled that role was grandfathers.
Yep.
A lot of times the grandfathers will pick up that mantle and try to be that masculine influence inside of their children's lives. Did you have a good relationship with your grandfathers, Robert?
I did, as long as I was working. My grandfather really didn't talk that much, and he would come pick me up like at 5 a.m. and take me to go chop cotton. At a very young age, I was probably, 7 or 8, and he came to pick me up. I hated him, but now I understand that they instilled this work ethic that I have now, and I didn't like it then, but I wish I was more like that with my own kids, like make them get up and whatever. But I thought, okay, you know what, so there's a balance between both, right? The spanking, the working, the whatever. Yeah. I remember I didn't think I was going to ever be non-calloused. I mean, I had it. For y'all that don't know what chopping cotton is, you take a hoe and you go start chopping. That's how you started smiling, and you go start chopping all these weeds. Now. So you chop the weeds beside the cotton, but they call it chopping cotton. Well, the first time I went out there, I chopped the whole row of cotton because it's called chopping cotton. My grandfather took my pay out of I didn't get paid the whole day for working out there because I did that. After that, he corrected me and said, look, you're not going to chop these. You chop the stuff beside it to let it grow. So then I learned about agriculture from him and my grandmother and everybody else. So, but anyway,
Dude, yeah, this is a family show.
Yeah.
Talking about weed and hose. You might not make us look so good.
It makes sense. You have to use you just have to
weed and hose.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, all right. Sorry. Here.
I didn't say it.
All right. So yeah, you did. You did. I heard it. Didn't anybody else hear it? But let me ask you a question. Is there something that looking back now that you changed? You said, I don't want to do this because I didn't necessarily agree with it with the older generation. And that was the way you did your parenting. But now you're looking back at it and saying they might have had some wisdom there. They might have been right. Maybe I tried to go in the opposite direction. And now I'm looking back saying, you know what? That might have been better than I thought it was.
They were, looking back and realizing that, and it's not just me, it's all your parents. Your parents only knew what they were taught. Your parents only knew what they know and what they were, what their parents taught them. So each generation has to be better, or change things that you didn't like or family chains or whatever. But, even working that hard, what they taught me was to work smarter, right? Because I saw them working so hard and they worked so hard for every dollar. I was like, they don't have any time left at the end of the day. They were working from sun up to sundown. Yes, my mother or my grandmother and my grandfather loved each other, but they worked so hard. And then I saw my mom and dad work a little bit smarter. So I had to figure out a way to work very smart to be able to have that family time, because you can always make more money, but you can't make more time. And so when you're trading your time for money, you only have a certain amount of time.
Yeah, dude, I think one thing, this might be a little controversial. I'm just telling you my past. I'm not going to go too deep into it. I grew up, the whole family was Pentecostal on both sides of the family. My mom and dad met at church because both of their dads were pastors, and they met going to revivals and stuff together. My dad's side was a lot more strict when we talk about Pentecostal. My grandmother had never cut her hair. She believed a woman's hair was her glory. And so she would twirl it up and put it in this big bun that she wore. She had never wore a pair of pants. She wore nothing but a dress, didn't believe in wearing makeup or anything like that. A lady is a lady, and she's supposed to be like this. And I'm going to tell you, I used to look at that when I was younger and think, man, this is so messed up. This is so messed up. And it was very extreme.
Wow.
I'm going to tell you, I have held that view all the way up until now when I start seeing this generation. And I look back and think of my grandmother was like, were they doing that for a reason? Now, I'm not saying that people need to not cut their hair, or not need to wear pants and stuff like that, but she wanted a lady to look like a lady. You guys can put two and two together, kind of what I was thinking about on that. That's one of those things as you get older, you look at things a little bit different. Even the rules that my parents had, not wanting me to watch too much TV. And the one I think I hated the most as a kid was having to go to church all the time, dude. How often did you go to church as a kid?
Every Wednesday and Sunday. My mom was very religious, and we kind of bounced from, different religions and stuff like that. And so first it was Catholicism, then Pentecostal, then, Methodist, Christianity. And I'm glad that she kind of did that. I didn't understand it then, because it got me a really big rounded view of different religions to keep my, faith open to different ideas and stuff like that. So, she just took me to several different places.
There goes another controversial subject. I think it's not talked about enough, religious alienation. There is a lot of these people that were raised saying this is what you believe and this is only what you believe and do not question it one bit whatsoever. We don't want you to step outside of that. And that can be really dangerous, because if you want somebody to believe something, they have to understand it. They have to ask questions. They need to know what all is out there so that they know what to base themselves off of.
Yeah.
I have seen that so much growing up through the years. Don't question it. Like if I had a question about any of it, and that kind of put a wedge between me and my family at one point, because I was one of the first ones like, okay, Bob Black Sheep, I'm going to start questioning because I want to know what I believe in. Right.
And why? Right. You just don't follow.
I don't want to follow. I want to, and so I would have conversations with people of other faiths, Muslims or Hindu or whatever. And I would realize like they believe in what they believe in just as much as we do. Okay. There is a lot of similarities in these things, but people will take these differences and just let them completely rip them apart to the point that we're not allowed to question, we're not allowed to conversate or anything. And I think that's a big part of where the world is right now. Is it any different? It seems like that just keeps getting even more and more worse. People are kind of in their little sub outlets. They're in their own little religion, the Methodists, the Baptists, the Pentecostals, the Catholics. They don't associate together. They have their own little groups and everything. And it's taught the world how to be so divided. I think there is something very exciting about learning about other cultures, man, and what people, go through. Dude, I think I've told you about this before. Like when we would go to some of these, political conferences, I was telling, the guys the other day, I don't know if they believe me or not, the politicians drink worse than rock stars. They really do. And, it's just very common for people to be sipping on a glass of wine or something like that. And I don't think anything's wrong with that. But growing up, that was like one of the worst things. For my family, my dad, even him being in the service, he had never even tasted alcohol. And so even until this day, I had my struggles with alcoholism and stuff early on. But if I get around people doing that, I feel like I'm doing something wrong, because it is so ingrained. It can be just somebody sipping on a glass of wine. And I'm like, oh, you're not supposed to be here. Man, I'm 38 years old. They're not doing anything wrong. And I had to question that. And I've realized I don't think there's anything with somebody sipping on a glass of wine. But that's how some of that stuff just gets ingrained inside of you.
That's what I'm saying. So feel about alienation, right? So if you at your age is having to deal with this and internally, imagine what a parent does when they alienate the other one, even though the child wants to love the other person. And you can see it. A child that's been alienated, they kind of hold back from loving the other parent, even though they want to. And there's moments that they do, but man, imagine that internal struggle that they still have. I didn't have alienation, when I was, my mom never did it to my dad, and my dad never did it to my mom. So I never had that. But when a child is alienated from you, you can feel it for sure.
Well, yes, I mean, even something like that, man, it's like if I question this and I've been told not to question it, or I want to step outside, I want to do something different, it feels like I'm disrespecting my family and what I was taught. Crazy thing, it was the same thing my mom was taught, that her parents was taught, and it was just kind of passed down. And I was of that mind, like, I want to question this. I want to push back on it a little bit. Not saying I don't agree with it or whatever. I want to understand it more.
Yeah.
And since then, I've been able to, have much more open conversations with my own mother. And she tells people all the time, like, I'm a different person. I think different. I'm much more open. And it was Eric that helped me with that. But at first, when I did it, it wasn't met with appreciation. It was,
I can imagine. I know your mama.
yeah, like, how dare you?
Yeah.
You do this, because she felt like when I'm pushing back at that, I'm not just pushing back on the concept or, the beliefs. I'm pushing back on what she was taught, and then that's a reflection towards her parents.
Yeah.
So there is parts of this, guys, that whether you have a parent or you don't, there would have been parts of this if you had a father to base it off of, you would have still kind of questioned what was going on. We have our own style of parenting. We just do. And it develops. In the beginning, it seems a little bit more challenging because it's a new experience and everything. But once the child gets, 3-4 years old, you're much more firm into it. You know what's going on. But the one thing that nobody can prepare you for, I don't even care if you had a dad in your life, you had an intact family, whatever, is when those children become teenagers. When those children become teenagers, take everything that you thought you knew and wipe it off, because you're going to be looking at your kids saying they're doing the same damn thing that I was doing. What?
You're going to have to grow a lot of patience.
Yeah, dude. What's parenting teenagers been like for you, man?
Oh my gosh. It doesn't matter. I've went through a couple of sets. So early, if you're a young parent, you don't have the patience or whatever else. And I guess you do, but you don't have the life skills to teach these kids, because you haven't been there, done that yet. If you're a parent early on. Now, after you have children later on in life, then you have a whole new skill set and appreciation and everything else. But when those kids get their teens, 12, 13, and now they're getting even older or into their teen years faster now because of technology. So they learn more, they learn faster, and they want that independence earlier on. So yeah, you learn a lot.
I mean, Jimmy brought up something yesterday, man, that it's something that's not talked about enough, but just the influence of technology, social media, porn, what that's having on our kids. These guys can search up anything they want to on the internet. They're going to make sure they look a certain way. They're doing a certain thing, whatever my heart desires. And then they get this image of that's what's supposed to be happening in my relationship. This is what they're supposed to be doing. Even on social media, everybody wants to be an influencer now. And they are so many people that are copying each other and then just fighting for this attention, that I think this is going to be very disastrous for relationships moving forward. I mean, what do you think?
Definitely. I can't even imagine growing up as a kid right now. You're going to have to monitor their stuff.
Oh, man.
Now they can Google stuff. They can Google image it, sex, whatever you want. It is there at their fingertips. I mean, if you don't have stuff on their kids' devices, you're going to need to do some kind of parenting app or at least monitor something they're seeing, because there's way too much information out there for them. Way too much.
All right, guys, can we be guys, ladies? Okay. Look, they make us look like that we're so disgusting sometimes. Look, I've been in the middle of those conversations where it's a bunch of women talking about their periods and all this other stuff and sexual. They can be worse than the guys sometimes. But I'm going to talk to the guys right now. You're going through those teenage years. You got your Playboy and stuff like that. Could you imagine being a kid having access on the cell phone to this unlimited amount of whatever you want to see? Oh my God, dude, how that's got to be programming and stuff up here. This can't be healthy for kids.
No.
It can't. One thing I would say is, Dad, you're going to have to be vigilant and stuff on this. But that also brings in the other part of this that sucks so bad, man. It's like all these conversations go together. They really do. Because if a dad starts coming in there and like, look, I know that you can be wander off on the internet sometimes and you can see some of these things. I'm going to put some limitations here. I don't want you having this. I don't want you having this. I don't want you having this. And then you got the mom. It's like, he's being controlling. He can't keep you back from that. Here, all access. Go do what you want to. He did it when he was a kid. And then you got this tug of war to where you're not even allowed to be a father. And if we don't have some limits put on this crap, man.
Yeah, that's in both homes. You know, it reminds me when we're in Baltimore and we were at a church, we had a bunch of young fathers come in and older fathers. It was all walks of life, right? From really young to older to already their kids are already out, everything. And when we're talking to them, one of the things that we asked them was, you know, and Baltimore's really bad. You got to understand, these people are poverty, drugs, everything. So we're asking these gentlemen, you know, like, what is it that you need? One of them shocked all of us. He's like, I need a role model. I don't know how I can be a father when I never had one. What is that? We have no idea. We know the idea of a father, but we don't know how to be one because we never had one in our lives. That still today just blows my mind. And it's true. It's 100% true. And we talked about this. We wanted to go down there and get something set up to where, you know, Eric and I or other men or whatever go down there and volunteer to show them how to be a father, show them how to, you know, just fatherly things. There's a whole lot of things we can teach them. But just being there is number one, right? And staying off the drugs. If you wouldn't understand, like when we were there were people dealing drugs, like literally right in front of us,
smoking crack right in front of us while we're standing there with the cop, man, right across the street from us, lady with a crack pipe dealing drugs, and the cops just sitting there telling us, I have to just sit here 24 hours a day. There's got to be somebody here as a deterrent. Could you imagine? They've gave up hope on that side of town so bad that this is just allowed.
It's horrible. So we're going to definitely help something with Baltimore. We just need to, you know, there's so many things that we need to do just for that and other things. So if you like, share, and donate.
Well, so to that point, okay, I'm glad you brought up that about Baltimore. When I made this, it was one of the situations that I was thinking about. Again, we didn't grow up without a dad. So hearing this, 9 out of 10 of those fathers that are trying to be fathers now said they grew up without a father in the home. For somebody like me and Robert, not from that side of town, that grew up with their dads, we don't know what you went through. And you need to be empowered to speak about that because I can learn from you guys. I thought you was going to say the one thing that you needed more than anything is family court reform, Title 4D reform, consequences for false allegations. No, they said we need male role models because we didn't have any. We want that more than anything. And that broke my heart. Now, on the other side of it, for somebody that's going through divorce or the mental torture up here, feeling like they're getting blocked with the family court, going through substance abuse. Robert, you got to see another side of me that you never saw when we was on the streets and we went to the substance abuse clinics. Tell everybody what those conversations was like when we was walking down the streets with those addicts.
It was like you were to me, watching you walk down the street, talking to those people. It was almost like a dream, like it wasn't real, because like it's happening right now. And these people are pouring out their hearts, telling you what they went through, that they've been through rehab 4, 5, 6 times. They have families that they've destroyed, that, you know, they didn't have a male role model in their life to see, you know, that they were in poverty. They don't know how to get ahead. Like a lot of these people just need some kind of hope and direction. And I think, you know, and these rehab clinics, it's really bad over there.
One thing that, you know, really got to me is when I was talking to the addicts that came out of the substance abuse clinics, I was very hopeful, and I could tell the sincerity in these guys' hearts because they weren't making any excuses for their actions. They weren't saying, oh, I was doing this because I had this type of situation or anything. They were basically saying, look, man, I effed up. And this is what's going on. I'm not making any excuses for it. I'm trying to get better, but I effed up. But it was also, it's very similar to the family court battle. When we talk about alienation and the depression that comes along with these divorce struggles, it empowers other men to speak up. But when I was talking to that one addict that was out there on the streets of Baltimore, hooked on heroin, and I was just talking about my own personal situation, I can remember his eyes just looking at me, and he said, dude, I feel like you're in my head. And he's like, how do you know what you're saying right now? I said, because I was you, man.
Yeah, been there.
I was like, look at me now. I've been there and done that. I never did heroin. I was hooked on opiates 15 years ago. I knew what was going on up here, and I hid. I isolated. I didn't want anybody to know what my life was like, but that didn't define who I was.
Yep.
All of this that you're going through right now sounds like it sucks, but dude, you have a chance to turn this around. You're important. You matter. Even though you might not have your kid right now, you can turn this around, Dad, and you can show them I made a mistake, but I overcame it. You know, you can be a victor in this. You don't have to remain a victim of your own bad consequences. You can start making better choices. And just to see the hope that breathes into people, man, in an area where they just don't have it anymore. Guys, the reason that we're sharing this with you is for those of you that didn't have a father growing up. Start creating your own groups and talking to each other. Let's get some male. Can we have some male role models to start talking to these guys that didn't have any dads growing up? Is that too hard? Look, that doesn't cost any money. We got Zoom. We got all of these different ways that these guys can show up and they can talk to each other. It costs you absolutely nothing. If masculinity was toxic, these guys wouldn't be craving it. Yeah. And a lot of these guys are going through those situations because they didn't have that masculinity. And the crazy thing is, even though they didn't have it, Robert, they know it was missing. They know it was one of those important ingredients and the consequences from not having it. And they don't even hide from that.
Yeah.
But again, addicts, what they do, they isolate, think I'm the only one. Nobody's going to understand this. If I tell people what I'm doing right now, they're going to look down on me. They're not going to think I have any hope. They're going to want to disassociate with me. They're going to be afraid that I'm going to steal from them or that I'm going to screw them over or something like that. So many people afraid to reach out to the ones that need the help the most, man. It's just what pisses me off so much. And then, you know, we left from there and went and spoke at Trump's Golf Club in Bedminster later on that night. But Robert, did I ever stop talking about the hood, man? Yeah. I have wanted to go back ever since because it was like, dude, it just takes a few brave men to go down there and
make a difference.
Relate, man. I mean, it's all it takes. Starting the conversation.
If we did that maybe once every other month or something like that, go down there for a weekend or whatever, just to go and talk to all these men, it will eventually trickle. It'll eventually break a lot of those chains and teach them a whole nother way of thinking, a whole nother way of acting. Teaching them how to be men and, you know, how to be fathers and get back into their children's lives. So I just saw, I think it was Cordeo. My dad died from overdose because my mom kept me from him. I mean, that heartbreak of having your child taken from you, everybody probably already knows here. It's like you're grieving the loss of a living child. It's that much hurt and pain, but you know, it's probably that much hurt and pain the other way to the child too. It affects them mentally, physically. They'll grow up later on in life having issues in school, in their relationships. It's not good no matter which way you look at it. Children need both parents in their lives.
Can I be open and honest with you guys about why I think substance abuse fits so much into these type of conversations? How many of you men have said, I've went through these situations until I come to Dad Talk, I feel like nobody understood what I was going through because you finally had people that were talking about it. These guys are going through, all right, maybe you're a guy that grew up without a dad. Later on in life, you want to have a family. You want it to be good. You maybe end up marrying the wrong person, and now you're going through this family court battle. You can't afford it. Now you're every other weekend visitor. Now you're having to reach out to this ex that's always going to be throwing off on you. It's always going to be conflict and stuff. You take it to the courts. She's in contempt of court. They don't do anything about it. They bleed you dry, and you feel like you've got nothing. You don't even have a dad to go talk to and say, Dad, let me get some advice. Well, when you're at work, you're not around the water cooler talking about your issues. You're just getting throughout your day, locking this up so that you can make it throughout your day. And I want you to understand something. These guys that have isolated, that have these issues and think that being a man means that they can't talk to anybody about it. And I love what Jimmy said yesterday. Make sure you're going to other men, masculine men, that you can trust in, and you're not dumping all this off on a woman that's going to use it against you later on. Find some strong men that can be influences in your life. But these guys that have isolated and held all this in, Robert, one day, it's never really had a hold of them before, but in the midst of my problems, I start drinking a beer, or I have a toothache, or so, any little thing could happen. Now I take one of these opiates or something like that. For that guy that's lost, that has that father void, that has that isolation, that feels like he can't talk to anybody, when they try substances, be it alcohol, drugs, or whatever, it's not like the normal person. The person that doesn't have a lot of these hangups can probably try it and say, I don't want to mess with that again. But when you take with that person that's been isolating and has that conflict and they try it, it just clings to them, man. Finally, I have something that if I use it, it goes off of my mind. But what happens? The next day it returns. So what do you do the next day? I do it again. Yeah. Because if I got problems and there's something that helps me through my problems, I'm going to do it again. The next day, do it again. The next day, do it again. And that's why it's so important for addicts, especially opiate addicts and people that end up on heroin and stuff. They don't just give you Suboxone or methadone or anything like that and say, hey, go get off the drugs. They say one of the number one things that these guys have to do if they want to stay sober is get into counseling. Because the counselor is more important than any of the drugs that will get prescribed to these guys. Because the counselor goes in there and finds the trauma that made them curious and attracted to the substances in the first place. Yep. Talking can be so much healing, dude. Sometimes these guys even know the answers to their own problems. They've just been keeping it inside and they haven't been able to speak. And knowing that if I've came up short in my life, maybe I made some mistakes, that I'm in a room full of people that aren't going to judge me. They're not going to take up for my actions, but they're going to say, look, dude, we all do that. Get the hell up, man. Get the hell up. It's okay. Tell us everything. You're not going to be shamed here. It's just sad. And that's why churches piss me off so bad, man. If you're a religious person, shouldn't you be able to go to your pastor or have a group there that you could talk amongst other men without any judgment? Hell, sometimes you get more judgment there than you get anywhere else, but don't get me on that soapbox.
Yeah, churches are something else. Churches should be behind our movement and what's going on. They should be putting the dad back in the home. They pray to the father, and yet they don't protect the father. Anyway, that's a whole nother issue. Okay, back to father. Show me how to be. I didn't have father show me how to be a father.
That's me. Thank you, Eric. This has helped me in every way. I mean, this is what it is, dude. I mean, you get on this screen, Robert, and you talk and you don't know, but I know when I say these things, and there might be somebody that's listening to it right now that you're not going to see down there in the comments. But for that guy that's going through those struggles right now, listen to me, man. I'm not just saying that to you. You can get beyond this. For those of you that didn't have a father, there's tons of dads in here. There's a reason why it's called Dad Talk. Get in here and let's be proud to be dads, man. If you got some mistakes, talk about it and get into the Dad Talk Today support group. Chat with these guys. Find out the information, and you will realize that you're not alone in any of this. That's why I say the most important thing when talking about this topic, I'm not going to come on here and act fake with you guys. And here's the 10 things that you need to do if you grew up without a father to be a father. I can't give you that list. I can. I'm sure somebody would love to sell you that type of guide. I can't do that. It wasn't me. But I'll tell you this. I realize that that's an issue. And just because we're talking about it today and I might not have all the answers, the second that I meet somebody that I trust that seems like an expert in this field that's not going to try to pick your pockets, I'll get them on this show and we'll talk about it again. The conversation's not going to go anywhere. But
The
we are
biggest,
on here just trying to get that conversation going. And I think that's a start, man, because when we talk about men's rights and we talk about fathers' rights, many of these conversations just need a starting point because they never even came to the starting line, dude. We
Yeah.
haven't even allowed it to get to that point. Go ahead, man.
people what's it called? Gatekeeping. Your ex is gatekeeping the children away from you. So when you're going into court and you're talking about this stuff, just make sure you mention gatekeeping. If she's keeping the kids away from you, stuff like that, alienation isn't alienation unless the children are rejecting you. What you want to tell the courts is that they are gatekeeping. And it makes sense. They have the key, there's the gate, they're not letting you over there. So they're gatekeeping.
The part that pisses me off with this system the most, and I've been strategizing over the past couple of months and in ways to get this out as good as I can, is it's not that these guys aren't paying, that they're not going through the system, doing what's told to be done. It's that this system is just so screwed. I'm not trying to create victim mentality, but when you've got the parents that are losing their lives, that went through this system, did everything that they were supposed to do, and end up on the losing side of it, there's just too many people out there that want to tell you this is the strategy to win in court. This is what you do. Man, there's some of these guys that they're smart. They did it the right way and they still ended up on the losing side. Look at Jeff Younger. And if these guys do everything they can, there is still a society, no matter how hard they try, to tell them that they're not trying hard enough, that they're not paying enough money, that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. What all do these guys have to do in order to be a dad? I want to just tear all that down and say, why did he have to go into court in the first place?
Yeah.
You know what it's like, dude? Like 4 years, a little over 4 years, I haven't been able to see a kid. And not because I don't want to. I'd be there like that.
Yep.
But every time I go and talk, this is the dollar amount. And this is just to get started. It's like playing poker with your kids. Do I want to chance this when I don't know what's going to come out of it? And then what happens? Every day that you don't go in that system, you're going to be shamed. Oh my God, dude, you went to McDonald's for your lunch break. That was money that you could have put towards the attorneys. That wasn't the attorney's money. That was money for me to take care of myself so I could get up the next day. I'd have bought my daughter a value meal. But you're wanting me to give all of it to the attorneys and the judges. And they are shaming you guys and to keep getting into this system. And I think it's just time for these guys to be able to say what's on their mind, because I don't know anybody that said, I went through the court system and said, this is amazing. I don't know anybody. It doesn't make any damn sense, dude. We gave the government way too much power in our marriages and in our homes. And there is going to be cases where these guys didn't have a father in there because he didn't want to be in there. I'm going to say that is the very, very minority of cases. One of the things I've seen when they come in here about the deadbeat, I beg my child's dad to be in his life and he won't have anything to do with him. You beg him. Or do you nag him? And do you say, you got to come see the kid at this time, at this place? This is how much it's going to cost. And if you don't do it my way, it's the highway. Do you put up a dead end every time he tries to talk to you? Because that's what I've been seeing, Robert.
Yep.
And none of these guys should be having to go through that in the first place. The system could protect this kind of bullshit. I know how else to put it, because that's what it is. It's bullshit, but they don't. They profit off of it. Anyway.
I always said that, if they would just start out at 50-50, if you're a fit, willing, able parent, if you're going to go through the family court system and go to a supposedly final trial, start everybody out even and then see who's the best parent. They're not going to do it because it doesn't generate a lot of revenue for them. If you give them already 50-50, then what are they fighting about? Nothing. So then you're not going to need an attorney. You're not going to need any of this other stuff. You go to court once and it's done. They need that door revolving.
Well, I was doing my homework right before this show started, and there was one of those cases where a dad was doing something pretty horrible to his kid. Then I saw a case where it was a mom. It was a mom and a dad. They had buried a child in the backyard, had been abusing it and stuff. And the judge was up there crying, saying, we get criticized so much for what we do, but you don't realize the baggage that we take home. I'm sitting here looking at the pictures of this child right here. This is why we exist. And you know what? Can I say something to the judge and those attorneys? That is why you exist, is for cases like that. But I have to believe the majority of these cases that are going through there is just people that don't love each other anymore. If they ever did in the first place, they don't know how to get along. Give them each access. and make sure that you're protecting against these false allegations, so it's not the circus that we know and how it's existing right now. That way you can focus on some of these other cases, man. One child, one parent being lost is too many. But dude, there is no shortage of these horrific cases going on right now that they could open up the courts for, so that they could listen to so much more. But no, we need you all coming in here. We need you all coming in here, because this is how it operates. You know, I felt some sympathy for that judge sitting there listening to that. And I was like, man, you know what? I would be behind you so much. I would. And I would have so much more sympathy for you if you saw how absurd the majority of those cases that are coming through there are, and get those out so that you could put your focus on this. Because I'd love to come and help you rally against the kids that are being abused and all this stuff, just as much as we're doing here. The problem is the majority of these cases are ending up in false allegations and kids being kept away from their dads and told that he don't want them when they actually do.
The biggest thing that can change family court system is judges and attorneys. Think about it. Just ask this one question, just this one question. If somebody comes to you that's been married for several years or dating for several years or whatever, and they have a kid together, this kid's been in their lives for several years, and there is no prior CPS involvement or law enforcement involvement, there shouldn't be a protective order, restraining order immediately when there is no prior history of it and that child is over, let's just say, the age of 3, right? It shows that the system is just using this and it's false allegations, and you're not having to protect that child. It's because of this divorce stuff that they're using it as a weapon. And so if they would just answer that one question every time an attorney came in with, oh, judge, look, there's a CPS investigation open. I need a protective order, restraining order. Judge asks, how long has this couple been together? And there's no prior involvement, but yet now they're getting divorced. And this is the first one. No, get out of my courtroom with this.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I'm sorry, guys. I know we ended up in a different direction again. I think there's so much that we can put into this. I see that there is a need for this conversation, and I'm going to have to reach out to some people to really be able to dip down into it, but we're at least trying. That's all I can say to you. But we always end up in this side because there's a lot of frustration when it comes to talking about this crap, man. And trying to get those conversations out. Oh my God, dude. The amount, like I said, the amount of comments and stories that have been rolling in saying, this is me, this is me, this is me. How has something that has affected so much of the world went so silent? How have they done such a good job at making sure that these people don't speak? And I have to believe it's that isolation. It's not giving them a voice, not giving them a platform, not giving them a microphone, making them think that they don't matter, that has caused it to get to this point. And it feels like we're going into people that just think there is no hope left on this earth and saying, get the hell up, man.
You know, I didn't even think about that. I just saw Amanda's comment about Dad Talk Today has helped me. I never knew how many people went through what I did having a dad kept away. I think a lot of people probably get a lot out of Dad Talk Today because, again, they're not alone in this. But also alienated children that see this program will understand what their dad felt, what they went through. They see your comments. This is something that's like a ripple effect, right? This is a stone that's being thrown into the lake. And then there's so many ripples that I don't think that we actually see what's going on, the bigger picture. Of course, we know it's a bigger picture, but it's helping so many families relate to it, or they're able to, get things to be able to relate to their family. Like I Stand With John. If you haven't seen it, it's a documentary. Dad went through this. Go look at it. It's on YouTube. I Stand With John. And you can show your family this and show what you could be going through if it continues that path.
Dude, I've had the kids reach out before. Like they saw their dad down in the comments that are watching the show, and then they'll reach out to me like, hey, you got somebody that's watching your show, and I think you need to be really careful with them. I'm like, why is that? Well, there was a lot of stuff that went on when I was a kid that I'm telling you, I think my dad's guilty. Okay, what happened? It's like, well, my mom told me this is what's going on. I was like, no, what do you remember? It was like, well, I don't remember nothing, but I know that this happened. I was like, okay. I was like, and I'll just ask questions. So I was like, I understand. Okay, you think your dad did this, and I'm not saying that they didn't. Maybe they did. But have you seen your dad's side of the family? No. And then you start getting these, you paint this picture for him like you have been kept away from this whole other side of the family. You've been gave this, and it starts teaching them how to question the narrative too. That's why it's so hard to do a show like this. I didn't have a father to show me how to be a father, because the first thing I want to say to you guys is, do you know that for sure? Do you know that your dad didn't want to be there? Was it one of those that he couldn't afford the system? Was it one of those that your mother was a nightmare, that she tried to keep you away? There are so many questions you need to ask before you just go straight on to blaming your dad for being this deadbeat in your life. Now, if he is a guy that never tried, he wasn't reaching out, he wasn't doing any things, I think he deserves that label of the deadbeat. But for these guys that were trying and kept meeting these dead ends, let me say something to you, babies. You might be old now and you're missing that relationship from your father. You need to put yourself inside of his shoes, find out what war that he was fighting, and go and make the best out of that relationship that you can while they are still alive. It could end up being like Jimmy. By the time he found out about his dad, it was too late. You might have had somebody there that loved you, that wanted to be there. Maybe you're somebody that's now going through that same trauma with that same mother, that she's doing this stuff to you. We need to start telling these people to ask questions. But I had this child that reached out, was completely against his dad. It was like, I've been seeing him. He's been watching your show. And the next thing I know, dude, they met for the first time ever. Well, I mean, since they was a child and since the dad had left, but it was one of those, like, seeing you made me ask questions that I had never thought of before. And this is what I hope we can get out to that younger generation before they go. Imagine what type of heart a parent has to make a child think that their dad never wanted them. He didn't love you. He was bad. He was this. He was this. I got to keep you. I've got to do these stories. I've got to put all these roadblocks in there because your relationship with your father threatens my victimhood. That's really what it is. The father being in that child's life threatens that mom's victimhood and those stories of how I'm this poor little innocent person that worked so hard and did it all by myself because he was never there. No. Many times that story happens just because he didn't want to be with you anymore.
Yep. How sad does that adult have to be in their head to screw with their kid just so they stay the victim? That's very sad. And Amanda, I saw her comment again, milestones that you wish that your dad was there for you. Well, let me tell you something. Knowing from the other side, let's just say Christmas. When you were thinking about your dad was always thinking about you too. On your birthday, when you were thinking you wish your dad was there, he was wishing that he was there too. You were both thinking about each other the whole time, whether he was there or not. I know because I'm a dad and I've been kept through some of these milestones. So just know that at the same time you were wishing, he was too. And I hope that that reaches out to a lot of people that are alienated, or even your dad, or even dads in this group. Your kid is still thinking about you, even when they're not with you. So you're both thinking about each other right now.
Are you creating those journals? Are you creating something that you can show? I never stopped thinking about you. Are you planting those seeds? And I think what happens, and I got to be honest with you, Robert, I think this pushes kids away even further, is there's these parents that say, I'm being alienated or something's going on, and they want to just go to their kids and say, this is what really happened. This is what really happened. Listen, look at this, look at this, look at this. And it just makes those kids go even further away. When you could sit there and you could lead by example, try to keep a calm head and maybe put some seeds out there. I've heard you talk about this, surrounding yourself with people that respect you. Because it's one thing when you say, I'm not a bad guy, but when you got all these other people around you saying, look, I've got an ex right now that says, I'm horrible. You don't know who I am. You don't know the real me and who I am behind closed doors, how bad of a relationship it is. And that relationship lasted about 7-8 months. And she knows me better than anybody that's known me for the 38 years. But I've got a marriage that's lasted how many years now? 5 times longer than that relationship did, and never had any of those arguments. When you have other people around that say, look, we didn't go through that, but let me question, what else is going in there? Do you have any other relationships? Usually if they did it to one person, they did it to many. And you start showing the common denominator with that person in your life that has created that story, right? Mm-hmm. Having those other people around you does a lot of good for you.
You have to have people that edify you, especially if you're going through alienation. You talking to your child is not going to help. In fact, it will do the exact opposite. Do not try to convince them how amazing you are, what you do for them. Don't talk about it. The more you do, it will separate you. What you have to do is get other people that they respect, their friends, your or other grown-ups, to edify you in their eyes. Invite them over. I know it's your time with your kid, but invite other children or your neighbors or whoever. That way they can see other people respect you if you're going through alienation. And they can, and just let them know what's going on, and they can correct your child if he or she says anything or whatever else. But have them go kind of above and beyond. Like, if you're cooking dinner, oh my gosh, this is the best spaghetti. Your dad cooks the most, the best spaghetti. He cooks this, that. Your dad's amazing. He can work on anything. Like, always constantly giving positive reinforcements, and that's what kills alienation. And also the frequency of you seeing your child. So, get these people to play Uno with you and stuff like that. Is if they see you laughing and joking, it erases that stuff faster than you trying to do it one-on-one. I promise you, I've been through it. I've been there, done that. Get other people around you and have them edify you in front of your child. And same thing, go to their school. If don't have a protective order, restraining order, go be friends with their teachers. They respect their teachers. When they see their teachers respecting you and the principal and everybody else, it has them erasing that alienation.
Yeah. I appreciate this comment, Miss Teresa Adeline. She said, let's pull it up. She said, I feel like this is what my husband is doing to my kids. I'm not keeping any of my kids from seeing him. If they want to live with him, they can. My son is the one that's angry, mad at him, and he thinks it's because of me. I'm the one that's having my boys call him. He doesn't even bother trying to call my boys. I'm also not going to force my kids to spend time with him if they don't want to. I don't know how old your kids are, but there's one thing. If your kids get old enough and they got the cell phones, it's not always on your husband to call them. Okay. Sometimes this has got to be reciprocated. If it feels like your husband is calling your kids all the time and then they're not receiving them, he probably does feel like, is there some brainwashing or is there something going on? Now, look, if you've got the kid the majority of the time and he's only got this little amount of time, it is very hard to create that bond that you naturally have. There is many things that he might be going through that sometimes is not questioned. You said you're not going to force your kids to spend time with him if they don't want to. Why do they not want to? Is it because he's abusive, like real abuse now? Is it because he's on drugs, or is it because they just saying, I don't want to go over there right now? There could be a reason that they don't want to go over there. Could be because dad's actually doing something right. But the only way that you're going to find that out is to sit down and actually have a talk with that man and say, can we get on the same level? You know how many times, Robert, I have my kids say, I don't want to go to their moms. And I was like, you're going. Yeah. Because I knew what that was like on the other side of that, being the non-custodial parent. Like, if she doesn't want to go, I'm not going to make her go. Well, why doesn't she want to go? Because I got rules that she doesn't like. And we'll see stuff like that. Sometimes the kids will play the parents and they know that that is there. That's why you don't have to love each other. You don't have to be in the same house, but finding somewhere where you can get at least some healthy communication. So those kids know that you are the parents and you tell them what to do. And they don't think that they are the parents and can tell you what to do. Because that's what I see happening in a lot of these divorced relationships. They know mom and dad doesn't get along, and the kids think they can do what they want to do when they want to do. And that might take you telling them you need to have some respect for your dad. Look, don't tell him that he doesn't want them or he doesn't do anything. Look, if that's what the kids come up to with their own conclusion, that's fine. But don't ever say that to their dad. And then think of the challenges too. How often are they calling him?
Yeah.
There's times when a guy feels like it's a war zone every time he reaches out to his kids, or that he doesn't get respected, or he feels like those stories are coming after him. At some point in time, they feel like, what's the use? And they disengage. Now, we can look down on that dad, but if that dad was there and he was trying, and then that's what he met, that's part of the conversations I don't think we're getting to hear.
Yeah. Well, Teresa, let me know too, because I'm kind of interested. Did your dad grow up in an intact, I mean, not your dad, your husband or your ex-husband, did he grow up in an intact family? Because if he didn't, and he doesn't know how to be a dad, or if he's working 24 hours a day to pay his bills, or I don't know what his situation is, but you know, he might be, and then there are deadbeat dads too. But as long as you keep trying to keep that relationship open with him and having, and I see that you're the ones that are having your boys call him, that's good. That's absolutely good. And then if something ever happens, hey, your son comes home and he got an A, that's amazing. You know, I'm sure your dad would love to hear that too. Like, send him a text. And also, my wife still talks to her ex, and we co-parent with my stepdaughter. So whenever my daughter comes home, my stepdaughter, and she's, has a bad day or whatever, we text the dad and say, hey, Lana's had a bad day. Send her a text or something. And so we are in constant communication like that. I know it doesn't always work, because communicating with your ex probably causes a lot of stuff sometimes. But if you're having them, reach out to him, then he can't be that bad of a guy. So try to keep that communication open, or even say, hey, send him a text. Of course, if it's not going to cause conflict between you all, him and you, and say, hey, our son's having a bad day. Can you at least reach out to him?
Well, see, this is where the family court pisses me off, because once you go to family court, you're taught my ex isn't doing this, my ex isn't doing this, and any type of reason or trying to get you two together to do these things peacefully just goes out the window, right? He might have some challenges. And what I would say is, be open enough to say, okay, I see your side of the story. And I would say he needs to do this same exact thing with you. This stuff is not as hard as we've made it out to be. But because of the family court battles, and this is somebody you once loved, that you shared a bed with, that you made kids with, you're not together anymore. There is a lot of emotions that get attached to this. I get that, but it's not as hard as we've made it out to be. You two go on. You can live your separate lives, but make sure that the kids know we are communicating. You are not going to use me against your father. You are not going to use me against your mother, because these kids will do it, and they take advantage of it. And it is up to you. You can either protect their relationship with that other parent, or you can tear it down. It was hard for me, Robert. Well, like I said, affairs and stuff went on in my marriage, right? And then I got my kids. I don't want to go over there because the guy that they had an affair with would be over there. And dude, I could have easily played into my own anger. And don't think I didn't have thoughts about it at some point in time. I'm human. I can tell you. I was like, I don't want you around him either. I remember the first time I heard about it, I was almost like, and it was one of those I had to sit and think to myself, that is wrong. Babies, you need to go to your mom's house. You need to go to your mom's house. You need to do this, right? And that's not always easy. Even just last night, hey, can my daughter stay an extra night? Yep. No fight or nothing, because I want them to know I practice what I preach, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think you're okay to love that other parent. That doesn't threaten me by no means.
Yep.
Go ahead.
My daughter just this last weekend, she was like, hey, Dad, I have all this stuff going on. I have wrestling match, debate, all this other stuff. They're like, can we just stay, at Mom's for the Friday or the Thursday overnight? And I was like, yeah, honey, go ahead. I'll see you the next day, because I'll be at your wrestling match and your whatever. So I don't keep my kids, even though all the 13 years of stuff happened, I treat it like that never happened. You are the grown-up. You are the parent. You have to keep that relationship open with them. The other thing I saw, someone said about video games on here. Kids love video games. If you don't have a relationship with them, go buy a game system that you have at your house. Show them. And here's the thing. Kids want to show you that they know more than you do. This is a good thing. because you say, hey, look, I bought this game system. I know you have one at your house. How do you work it? You let them build that relationship with you to teach you something, and yet they want to spend time with you because it's something that they know about. It's not always about you teaching them something. They want to be able to teach you something. And so that's one big way of doing it. And they can stay in communication with you while they're at the other parent's house if you have that game system. It sucks that you have to do it that way, but hey, like I said, you have to be involved in your child's life.
Well, here comes something that a lot of dads have to live with. I don't have any personal experience in it, but I was hearing somebody talk about it the other day. And I was like, that's very interesting. The parents that have kids that have autism, right? You have to do things a little bit different. Video games can actually be a really good thing with the kids that have autism as long as you're doing it with them. Okay. Are you going to be able to just sit down, nothing else, have a one-on-one conversation? Sometimes that might not work, but if you was on that game set and you're doing this teamwork together, or you're building that fort together, or you're doing that hunting or whatever it is that you do together, they like doing it with you. And sometimes it's in how you spend that time. Right. And for a father that is going through these challenges and only has it every other week or whatever, that's even harder. Because you're trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. Dude, it sucks, because I have to say, a lot of times these guys that are just seeing their kids every other weekend, it's almost like a fatherless child. It is. And it makes me realize how we have barely scratched the surface on talking about fatherhood. We really have. And that's why I'm wanting to encourage some more of these conversations. So guys, make sure you're down there in the comments. Make sure you're welcoming people. And look, if we're not talking about your personal story right now, if you got some challenges that's going on, put it down there, because we're encouraging you to speak up. All we're saying is we're trying to be a conduit to that type of change. And just because you didn't have a father doesn't mean you can't be one of the greatest fathers in the face of this earth, man. You're in here with a lot of dads. You can talk to us. You can talk to us about anything. I've got some stuff I can probably bounce off of you guys, right? And get some information. I've met some of my best friends, including Robert, including the guy I got on the screen right now. I talk to him every day. I wouldn't have ever known you had it not been for this, man.
Yep.
And now, like, how many times has there been something that you've been going through, like a challenge with fatherhood, or me? It could be vice versa. And we'll be on the phone with each other late at night, like, dude, you know, can you relate to this? What would you do? And everything. And it's nice to have that, man. Just because you didn't have that doesn't mean you can't be a great father and you can't have masculinity in your life, but you're going to have to search for it and you're going to have to build it.
That's what our support group's for. So there's Dad Talk Today, which you're on now, but go to Dad Talk Today support group on Facebook and join. There's, 30,000 people in there that are willing to give you advice on whatever you're going through. If you're having a hard time with your kids, if you're going through alienation, if you're going through family court, if you're just starting this process, if you're going pro se, all this stuff is in there. There's little pieces of gold that we drop in there. You can search some videos, and they range from everything from alienation to, what to file, if they file this, what to do, what to refile. An order is not an order until it's entered. And so you can file a motion to reconsider and have the judge relook at certain parts of your evidence, stuff that even your lawyers won't tell you, but you have options in everything. That's the one thing about family court. You can just refile if you don't like what you get. And there's always little bits and pieces that you can tweak or whatever else, whether it's your child support or anything else. So come into our support group, Dad Talk Today support group, and just drop your questions in there. The other thing is, if you want to talk to Eric and I, here we are. Throw your comments in there. If you try emailing us or texting or any of that stuff, we have people that screen all that stuff, and more than likely it won't get to us. If you want to talk to us, here we are. Every day Eric is in here with me or someone else. There's the comments. Write your question, write your comments. We are here for you right now.
These guys have been so isolated and haven't heard this conversation. When they hear what we're talking about, they think, man, I've got a case that's going to blow your mind. And then once I tell this case, it's going to make everybody stand up and say, we got to change the system. not realizing just how many of them that there are. And when you don't pay one-on-one personal attention to that, they think it's because you don't love them or that you don't care for them. It's about trying to get out to as many people as possible, guys. So get in here and do this. I see Rob said, you know, he commented in support group and he heard from another snarky dad. Look, guys, let me tell you something. Hurt people hurt other people. This isn't anywhere that you're paying for that service or that that you got this counselor or anything. It's dads helping other dads, and they are hurting too. And one of the things that I did very early on is when some of those guys would do that, I'd block them and I'd move on. And then I realized that how many other people have done that to that person as well. That's a hurt person right there. Encourage. And if you see that crap, man, just go on your way. Do you know that person? Do you got a personal relationship? Stop letting these people on social media take too much control of your mind, man.
Yeah.
You know what you're in here for. You know what you're doing it for. And I love conversations like this because we had the first part. Now I want to touch on this. Maybe we can see some change happen on this screen right now, Robert. Teresa Adeline said, my husband grew up without a father. He used to say that he doesn't want his kids growing up without a father. My son is 7 years old and remembers now how he was being treated. I do encourage my son to talk to his dad. I tell him that his daddy loves him and that he will always be his daddy. You know what you could do? A lot of times these guys that grew up without a dad are so afraid that they're going to do something wrong. They think that they're going to screw up that child's life that they don't even try. And that's easy. It's easy to just put them down for that. But you know what, Teresa? I want you to try something for me. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm not giving legal advice or anything, but maybe pay him some compliments and encourage him a little bit more. Give him some type of something. You know, just make it much more welcoming and stuff and see what happens. This could be a guy he's afraid of fatherhood because he thinks he's going to fail his kids like his dad did for him. There is a thing called adverse childhood experiences, and these guys go through that. They think that they are a product of what they went through, and that's all that they're ever going to be as well. Yeah. You know what? You're encouraging that relationship. We can protect our kids' hearts, or we can tear it apart, and that might just be what it is. I mean, It sounds like you've tried to comprehend in your mind what's going on too. Maybe change some of the ways, and I'm not trying to put this off on you. This could be like 100% everything you're saying is accurate, but I have to ask these questions and make sure that we're looking at it in every possible way that we can. And it could be something as simple as that, with some encouragement, paying him a compliment or something, telling him that he is doing a good job that makes him want to do it even more. You don't know until you try it. Okay. Yeah. And you know what? You know who that helps? You know who that helps when you do that? Don't think of it as I'm being extra nice or bending over backwards to my ex that's snarky towards me or does this. It's going to help your kids, because the more they have their dad, the more they have you, the more they have that healthy co-parenting, the better your kids are going to be. I've seen so many people, well, my kids didn't have a dad and look out how they turned out. How much better could they have turned out if they would have had that? There's going to be things that they're going to come to mom about. There's going to be things that they're going to come to dad about. But just try that. I'd really like to hear from you, on that. And you know what? I appreciate you for speaking up. I appreciate you for coming in here and doing this. And this is how we get over these topics, guys, is by talking it out with you.
Yeah. My ex, my child that's 25, I still talk to his mother probably every 3 months. I'll call her just to see how she's doing. She's still the mother of my child, or my grown adult now. But we practice what we preach here. We, if we're telling you, hey, you need to keep that relationship open or whatever else, that communication open, everything else, we actually try practicing everything that we say.
Yep. I like that, Panama Craig. He said, ego plays on a man really help. Instead of saying, why don't you want to be a father with me? That makes a family. Instead say, you're so smart. You have so much to give. Dude, I mean, I get it. Sometimes that could help. And you know what? You might say, I don't want to do that. But if something that small could do that, I don't know. Sometimes, guys, this world has forgotten how to provide the others with encouragement. If you got something that's going on very well in your life, most of the time you'll know about it. And not too many people sharing that success with you, but the second that you do something wrong, people will be all over it to tell you what you did wrong or whatever. And that's just what we've created in this world. Talking about this, Jeff Morgan, what is going on, buddy? He said, I also think that stepdads should encourage children to talk with their dads and not be imposter daddies. I remember this past weekend, my wife was working. They, her kids do parkour. That's a sport that's become really popular with the kids now. And they were going with their dads, and I took them and I helped them get out their luggage and everything. He's like, you're going to your dad's this weekend? I was like, yeah. I was like, man, I hope y'all have a good time. Tell them I said, hey, I want them to have that time. You could encourage that. And you know what? Stepdads, dads, you would want somebody doing it for you. A lot of these things could get better if we start changing how we react to it. What does that do to us if they enjoy their stepdad and he's good to them, or if they enjoy their father? I would say the same thing for a father. You went through this with your ex. If there is a new stepdad that comes into the house and he's good to your kids and he stays out of the drama, he might even actually be one of your biggest assets. Give him a little bit of credit too, because he's now putting up with Satan. Yep. You know what you put up with. At least, you know what? If you can get along with him, maybe you have one level head that you could talk to inside of the house. He could be your best friend, man. Yeah. Who cares if he's with your ex? You don't want to be with him anymore. We can change.
You're like, I already been there, done that. I know what you went through.
Yeah, dude. I'm 100% behind it. There was a comment that came in there. I accidentally pulled it up and I blocked the guy saying, hey, do you want to stalk your ex's phone? Guys, look, if you're somebody that would fall for that in the first place anyway, you probably don't need to be on social media. But all these people that show up in the comments, hey, you look cute, send me a friend request and stuff like that. Look, that girl that's in that bikini that looks like the supermodel is not down here in the comments on Dad Talk trying to have a relationship with you. That's Xavier. That's Xavier somewhere over in the Middle East or something like that trying to get you scammed. Don't fall for that crap, please. I'm just going to bring that up because I always want to make sure that nobody falls for it. From what I'm told, the fake Dad Talk Today profiles have really started back up again, especially out there on Instagram. It's not us, guys. It's just not. Anyway, keep going, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, having that relationship open is an amazing thing, and you got to do everything to keep that communication open.
She was saying her husband lives with his girlfriend and 3 kids along with my 2 girls. Some days he texts me and complains about one of them, saying they don't listen or do whatever when they're told to do so. That could be true. That could be true. I'm going to tell you, a lot of times, especially with divorced parents, look, that's why the nuclear family is so important. If you can have mom and dad and they don't break up, then you got mom and dad in the household. And when you are on the same level, okay, the kids know I can't go to mom and play dad. I can't go to dad and play mom, right? And they see you on there, and that is the most healthy thing for a kid. Now we divorce. Now we've got a stepmom. Now we've got a stepdad. Now you just added 2 more people in, and usually the kids aren't going to have as much respect for the step parents as they are the biological parents. And then they start realizing I start becoming a teenager. I get curious. I don't want to do what they tell me to. If he says I've got to clean my room or I've got to make up my bed or I got to do this stuff, I want to be on my cell phone. I want to play my video games. I want to go out with my girlfriend. I want to do these things. Man, just leave me alone. We all went through that with our parents, Robert. When they would bring us the chores or tell us that we couldn't go somewhere, they put the limitations down. What did we do as kids? We tried to do what we wanted to do because that's what they are. They're kids. And you can't expect somebody that's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old to be operating with the brain of however old you are right now. They're kids. Yep. And they're trying to get their way. He could be telling the truth. And if he is every other weekend dad or he's only getting to see him periodically, they might not have any respect towards him. If anything, that kind of says to me, I need your help with this. Tell them to respect me.
Yeah. The other thing you can do is have, your neighbors or whatever else, or you know what, if you don't have your kids, go be a best friend to a dad that's going through this. You can be that person that edifies their child that may be going through alienation or whatever else. So even though you're going through this, you can understand it and you can be there for someone else. Now during COVID and stuff like that, I had friends that Zoomed in all the time. They were right here on my computer screen. If I was cooking or whatever else, we were still talking. My kids still hear and see what's going on, even though that person isn't there. Be creative about this.
There is nothing worse than having a child come over that thinks they don't have to listen to what you got to say. No matter what you do, you try to act like a dad. You try to be a dad. You try to do these things, and that kid, no, I'm not listening to what you got to say. And guess what? At the end of this weekend, I'm going back to mom's anyways. We like to talk about the joys of parenting, and I love being a dad more than anything. But those are the moments where you don't feel like a parent and all you feel is frustration. And there's going to be times where it's not joy with your kids. It feels like hell on earth, just as much as that bad relationship. And that's politically incorrect. We're not allowed to talk about that, dude. One of the worst things on the face of this earth is a kid that thinks they rule you, that they don't have to have respect for you. Or when you got a kid that's over at the house trying to get their way and you can't believe what's coming out of their mouth. Yeah. And you want to know why they don't want to have a relationship with them? It could be because of the kid. And just because they're the dad, if the kid's acting up, you can't just say, oh my God, he doesn't want to be with the kid. The kid doesn't listen to anything that he's saying, and they are disrespecting him in his own home. Hell no, he doesn't want to be around them. I'm just going to give you the truth, man. There is a lot of these kids right now that put their parents through living hell. And we've thought just because that's the kid and that's the dad, oh, you got to do all this, you got to do that. Hell no, man. Make them respect their parent, and they'll enjoy that time with them kids much more. That's not about control. There's a difference in being controlling and being a freaking parent.
Yeah.
There's so many people that think being a parent is controlling. No, setting the guidelines, having the expectations and stuff, that's being a parent. That's not controlling. But dads, you are controlling. You're doing this, and if they step all over you and you get upset about it, you're doing something wrong. Oh man, it just feels like we are doormats sometimes, dude.
You know, one thing that I do with my kids, even my stepdaughter, is that if they do something, you know, kids aren't perfect and they're all teenagers, whatever. They're gonna say something, do something that's gonna offend you. So when that happens, I give it, 10, 15 minutes, maybe a half hour, even an hour. And then I'll go address it with them. So if, I don't know, somebody, it's always something, right? You tell them to throw the trash or whatever else, and they don't listen to you. So then you give it a little bit, and then you go take care of it. Don't keep feeding that fuel and that fire to make it bigger and bigger and bigger. Just give it a little bit, or give them time to do whatever it is that they ask them to do. And they didn't do it, just say, hey, this is really disappointing to me that you didn't take the trash out, and here it is an hour after I already had said something, can you please go do it? And then try to readdress it, but don't let it get to you. Sometimes they have a lot of stuff going on too. Like, this court stuff's not easy for you. It's definitely probably not easy for them. They probably have, that on top of it, they have school peer stuff that's going on, boyfriend, girlfriend stuff. Relationships. And, once you get in your phone, that time just passes like crazy. So sometimes that you feel disrespected or they didn't listen to you, sometimes they get distracted. So just remember that you get distracted too, and just be a little bit more patient with them, and hopefully it won't fuel that fire.
Well, dude, I think it's unfair sometimes. We talk about the step parents and the simp and everything like that, especially after this past weekend, seeing Peter Griffin in the Permian football shirt. That was one of the funniest things I ever seen in my life. At the same time, one of the biggest challenges that you can face also in parenting is being a step parent. Okay, yeah. We talk about it. Look, as a step parent, you're supposed to have boundaries. Don't overstep this. Don't get in. But that can also be hell on earth too, being a step parent. And just because you're a step parent and that child is inside of your house that you're not a biological father to, that they think they don't have to listen to what you got to say. Guess what? You're going to need that masculine role model too. And that's why I say there needs to be some type of respect there with that stepfather or that biological father, because you two are playing the masculine role when the other is not around. And those kids are going to need that. No, they don't need to overstep their boundaries, but neither does the kid. The kid doesn't have the right to step over this person just because they're not a biological parent. They're the ones that's paying the bills. That's their roof. They're the ones that's helping feed them and do all these things. And if they're being that good role model and they're not trying to get in between your relationship and stuff, don't you want your kids to have respect for them? I think sometimes pride and ego gets in the way with this one, especially with men, dude. I've talked about it before, man. Like my kid's stepdad. My kid was talking back at him, screaming at him, and he was telling me how, you know, it could be a nightmare sometimes. I was like, look, dude, next time, call me on the phone. I was like, I want them to have respect for you. He's like, I don't need you. I'm a grown man. I don't need you. I'm not calling you. Tina was with me. My wife was sitting right beside me when this happens, and we both later on was just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, I want to be able to get along, and I want to make sure that, you know, you establish that. But that was what I got. And the only thing I can think of is pride and ego or whatever. But, you know, it puts the example for the kid too. Like, they're not going to be able to get along. I can do what I want when here, because I know they're not going to be able to talk. Right.
Yep.
And I am so far beyond that. I might have been that way at one point in time when I was in my 20s or something, but now I'm just, I want to get along with you, dude. And if you can put down the ground rules, because guess what? When they're at my house, I expect them to act a certain way and want them to do a certain thing. They need to do the same thing with you. And if they think that they can just disrespect you because you're a step parent, give me a call, because I'm going to say, I back you. I'm not saying I'm better than you. I want to back you. But there's even some guys, when you give them stuff like that, I don't want to talk to you.
And one of the things, when they're grounded at the other house, they should come over and be grounded at your house. If y'all have a good relationship, open, you know, that way they understand that they're not going to get out of trouble if they just play each other's parents in both sides. And kids will do that, especially teenagers. They're very, very smart. They'll play both sides. One thing that I learned very early on, going through all this custody battle and stuff, the kids will come over and say all kinds of crazy stuff. Sometimes a lot of the stuff is exaggerated, made up, taken out of context, whatever else, because they know that it'll fire you up, or it'll get you to feel bad about them. Oh, honey, it's okay, sweetie, blah, blah, blah. I learned very early on to not feed into that stuff. And I'm like, hey, unless you're being hurt or whatever, then, you know, I really don't want to hear it. But if there's something that you want to tell me, just know that you're going to tell me, and then I'm not going to comment on that. So I don't feed into it. You know, the crazy part is now, because I didn't feed into it early on, they really don't do any of that stuff anymore unless it's important. So if you feed into it and you play into it, and they're going to expect to come over to give you the juicy stuff. Yeah, mom had a fight with her boyfriend.
Kids love to talk, don't they?
Huh?
Kids love to talk, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
They
So
love to
let
hear
them talk,
that back
but
and
don't
forth.
feed into it. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're going to.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
telling you, if you haven't been through it yet, they're going to. You get, the more that you can be, you know, on the same level as that other parent with their new spouse or whatever, as much as you might not like them, the better it's going to be for your kid. So if you're not trying to attempt to do that, you need to look in the mirror. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, dude, every once in a while I get these things as we're talking about. I'm like, oh, that's a future episode. I just wrote it down. Why dads and stepdads should get along. Oh, that's going to piss some people off the second they hear stepdad. Hell no. And I can understand it, but because we're not saying that can happen in every situation, but there is a story that we're going to be working on sometime soon. I was just on the phone with dad and stepdad last week. And at one point in time, they literally hated each other because they believed the stories that had been told about each other. Okay. Now they're working together because they got a
common denominator.
There was a common denominator there, and they both were fed trash about each other and they didn't want them to talk. Now they're stepping back and realizing how very similar their situation was. And there was a child that died in the process in the middle of this. Okay. This is how serious this gets. But now they are coming together and they are working together because they want to see justice get out in this case. And there was more stepdads in that process too. And they went through the same thing. Every time a new man came in the house, this is what he did to me. He was abusive. He was this and this and this. And it makes that new man that comes in the house think, I don't want anything to talk. I'm not going to talk to them. I got to protect her from them. The Mighty Mouse, the Permian football. Okay. Guys, we got to start encouraging those conversations. Could you imagine if we actually promoted these guys to start speaking, Robert, the type of power that this movement could really have?
Yep. We need dads showing other dads how to be dads. You got an idea? Bring it in here and tell us about it. We would love to hear it. Kind of like those little bits of pieces in gold that you found through your life. You've been on this earth, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it is, and you have something to contribute to these other dads that they haven't gone through yet.
Mike Manny Whitney, buddy of ours, said this is all good advice and all, but imagine zero contact with your kids for many years. Zero. Robert, we don't have to imagine that. I know what that's like, but you know what? Where am I at today? I'm doing dad talking. I'm doing it today. Here's my journal. If you don't think that I've got a fight in this and that I have a voice, look at what I'm doing every single day. I don't have to imagine it. But you know what? I can't let the situations that I've been through change me. I know what I stand for. I know what I believe in. And if anything, the things I'm saying now, I might not have practiced what I preached back then, but it's what I wish I would have knew. Okay. Yeah. It's what I wish I would have knew. And if we can give these little bits and nuggets of knowledge to these guys before they're going through it or while they're going through it, I have to believe the things that we've been saying are going to be beneficial to people. We know. What was that message we got right before we got on here from that one gentleman? Oh, let me see. I'm gonna read it. I won't say their name. Yeah. Hello. I just want to tell you what I hope you hear dozens of times a day. I appreciate your page and your posts, and I've found some comfort in knowing, very unfortunately, that I'm not the only one going through my difficult journey. There are so many specific topics you discuss that leave me in disbelief to think that so many people can be going through the same thing, yet the legal system is too flawed or corrupt to fix. To keep this from becoming too lengthy, I just want to send you a heartfelt thank you. Keep doing your amazing work. Do you know what that means to guys like us on the screen? Letting us know that we're going in the right direction. We're not on here saying that we know best or like, hey, come and buy my course. We're on here saying this is what we wish we would have knew. And we hope that us speaking up, even if it comes at our own misfortune, can make sure that nobody else has to go through that same thing. And I understand the zero contact and it hurts. But what are you doing every day to show that that narrative isn't true? Yeah. Sometimes it's not just going and saying, kids, look, here's the pictures. Hey, here's the letters. Look, this is bullcrap. This is bullcrap. But showing that you're using your experiences to empower others. And when they see that other people are saying, man, I relate to this guy. What he's saying is true. It might make them even question your story.
Yep, 100%. The other thing is if you're not, a lot of people, if you look at the statistics and you can show them later on in life or whatever, or they're going to read something later. And the sad part is it's too late. Their childhood's already gone. Even abused children want to be with their parents. Look at the statistics. It's alienation that has children that does not want to be with their parents. So if you look at that, there has to be really good reasons. I mean, at some point, those children are going to question, well, shit, what did dad do that was so bad? Really? Like he didn't give you an iPhone or he didn't, whatever it is. Even abused children want to be with their parents. It's only in alienation pretty much, or big extreme abuse, right? Like you can have verbal abuse, whatever, or just little stuff. Like we all got hit when we were kids, right? That's abuse. Now, according to CPS, you get a belt and hit a kid with it. That's abuse. I still loved my mom and dad. I knew that I did something wrong. Now, if there's real reasons for whatever it is they did, there's discipline and then there's abuse. Now, if they're taking things out of context, whatever, but children still want to be with those parents. It's only in alienation that this is the problem, is that they don't want to be around them.
And to back up what you're saying right now, looking at Jimmy yesterday, 18 years, he thought that this guy was his dad, found out that he wasn't his dad, found out that his dad had actually died, later gets to go and talk to his stepfather and find out it wasn't because the stepfather was abusive. It was because my mom was cheating on him. Look, dude. He found out I was moved to a different country. My name was changed. I was blocked from this relationship. The dad that I did have in the home, the masculine role model, I was completely brainwashed against. Now I'm finding out the true story. Nothing I've had my whole life had any truth to it. Everything was a fairy tale. He said, I've got two choices. I can act like it didn't exist and keep having that relationship, or I can hate her and have no contact. He calls her every week, Robert. Even though all this pain had happened, that guy is 6'6". He was a former WWE wrestler. I don't know if you guys saw him. Jacked, but he started to cry when he talked about that relationship that he didn't get to have with his father. But the person that helped with this, he still calls every week because he loves her. Even through all this abuse, through all that trauma, I know what you did was wrong. I still love you, and I'm still being there inside of your life. And that just kind of backs that up, even for some of these guys. I hear it all the time. My mom was this, my dad was this. I still talk to them, but I have to have limits and boundaries in the relationships. No matter how horrible the instances, there's many times that they're still talking to that parent because they have that natural desire to love them. That was my mom and dad. That's who brought me into this world. And when you see these little kids that are just completely programmed to think that that person hates me and I don't want anything to do with them, it has to make you question. It's got to. But guys, that is going to be it for today. I've got several shows lined up this week, and I hope you show up and support. Tomorrow is going to be a different one. And I think this is going to be one of the most challenging podcasts for me, Robert, and it would be for you too. It's the most popular fantasy football counselor on the internet. He's the fantasy football counselor. He talks about, the fantasy matchups in football, but how his dad inspired him to start this. That has now taken off. He was wanting to talk to us about it. He's a fan of Dad Talk, been watching us. I can't tell you a thing about football. I still think that Joe Montana is the quarterback. And that Deion Sanders is with the Dallas Cowboys. I think that's what it was. Like, dude, my knowledge in sports is back in the 90s, very early 90s. I'm still Larry Bird, Charles Barkley, Michael Jordan. I have no idea about this, but I'll find out some way to get through the conversation. We always do, but that is going to be tomorrow. And then Thursday, I'll be live with Canadian country music artist Brett Kissel. For the first time, he wants to talk about how his mom estranged him in a relationship similar to this and how he's now rebuilding a relationship with his dad. He said he's never spoken out about it publicly. If you go and check him out on YouTube, he's got millions of views, very accomplished musician, got some good stuff, man. But we'll have him on Thursday. And then Wednesday, I'm going to do a different type of show. So I'm going to give you guys some homework to do. Robert, have you seen The Tinder Swindler?
Yes.
What'd you
That's
think?
a crazy Netflix movie.
What'd you think about it?
It was pretty crazy.
So I'm going to do a reaction podcast on The Tinder Swindler. So you got tonight and tomorrow to watch it so that on Wednesday we can talk about it. But I think that kind of goes in with what Jimmy was talking about. Women are looking for that top 1% of men. 99% of women are looking for that top 1%. He's got to be good looking. He's got to be tall. He's got to be rich. He's got to be this. And he was talking about how many of these guys maybe get 0 to 5 matches out of every 100 swipes because they don't fit that criteria. And most of the time, if you fit that criteria, you're probably not going to be on Tinder in the first place. Let's be honest, right? But they're looking for that top 1%. But there was this guy. He dressed really nice. They thought he was the son of a billionaire. He was everything that 1% is supposed to be. And the things that he put these women through. And I'm going to tell you, as bad as what he did was, I had to sit back and say, you thought that's what you wanted. You thought that's what you wanted. You went after
They did it because they were going to get something in return.
They was going to get something in return. So I'm going to do a reaction video on that this Wednesday. I can give you a brief synopsis. All these guys went after this guy. It was all fake. It was all a ruse. They sent tons of money to him, and he was doing this to women everywhere, all because wore the nice clothes. They thought he was the son of a billionaire and everything, and they
thought they had the chance.
They thought they had the chance, and he got him.
They were going to give a little, and they were going to receive a lot. And he was robbing Peter to pay Paul, like constantly, just juggling, just.
Well, I mean, they got to meet Peter too, I think.
They got to meet Peter and Paul.
Oscar Admeyer. He's like, who are you going to be today? But I like I said, as bad as what he did was, I sit back and I'm like, you fell for it. Look at what you think you want in a man. How did that turn out for you? All these ladies that come to, I wish I could find a good man. There's many of them right in front of you, but he's not checking off all those boxes. Well, what is it that you expect? What is it that you're putting out in return to think that this is what you want? There are so many of these guys that have so much to offer, and they're starting to get to the point that they don't want to have relationships anymore because of what's expected out of them. So let's talk about that. Let's do that Wednesday. So amazing shows coming up this week, guys. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you want to support the podcast, there's the link down there at the bottom. And dude, how are you enjoying your new cup?
I love it. If nobody has these, I don't know where Eric's having these made, but I'll fill it up with ice in the morning. I have Coca-Cola in it, so it's going to eat up half of it. Even if it's half the ice and I come back to it tomorrow, it's still half the ice. I don't know where or how you got these. These are amazing.
So my nephew and my niece tried for 5 years to have a child. Something runs in their family where they can't have kids. And finally, they have a child, and it's a boy. And I sat down there holding him the other night, dude, 6 months old. Such a cute kid, man. But she has, quit her job so she can stay at home and raise him and wants to do the schooling and stuff. She was curious about printing. And I said, well, look, I need help with merchandise and stuff. I don't ever put it out on the podcast, but here's the reality, guys. To do some of the things that we're wanting to do to cover some of these stories, we're going to need some type of financial support from you. And I don't beg. But this is, just different ways you can get you some cool gear. You need to be going to your courthouse. You need to be going into your workplace and everywhere with your Dad Talk Today gear. We're trying to get it going, but she's making these. And they 100% support fathers' rights. And so if you're interested right now, you got to message the Facebook page and we'll get you taken care of. But we're looking to have a shop up sometime soon that you can go on dadtalktoday.com. We're going to put a little bit more work into the website so that you can go on there. And these are going to be important things that if you wear it throughout the day, the messages and stuff that we're going to put in the back, it's about getting the awareness out every way that we can, man. And
where did they get cups at?
If you want a cup, you got to message the Dad Talk Today Facebook and just let them know that you're looking for a cup and they'll get you taken care of. I think they're doing it right now, Cash App and Venmo. And they
How much are they?
It's $25 for the cup and $5 for shipping. And I'm going to tell you, it's not bad, dude.
These are well made. I'm telling you, these are. I'm telling you.
It was a little bit different in the beginning. Yeah,
better than styrofoam. I used to use a styrofoam cup. Y'all saw me on here all the time with styrofoam because styrofoam it wouldn't melt the ice, whatever else. This stuff is way better than even styrofoam. The ice does not melt.
No, I think she did an amazing job on these, dude. And I got my coffee in one, got my water in one, and it makes me all the way through the show. But that's just little ways that you can support the show. And you got the straw. How you like the straw?
The straw is amazing. It's metal, and the outside it's rubber or something. It doesn't, like, even though it's super cold inside, it doesn't make my hand cold. I don't know about hot. I haven't put hot in it yet, but my hand is not cold at all. That straw gets cold. Yeah, the straw does get cold when it hits your teeth sometimes. Yeah. Oh, heck yeah, man. But yeah, guys, when you support that, you're supporting family that's raising up a child. And I told them the other day, I was like, make sure that he knows growing up. I want to make sure that child is taught right, because I see one of these young kids, one of these young boys being born. I'm just like, what is it that they are going to face? Can we change it before that generation gets there, Robert? I don't know if we'll ever change it to where we'll benefit from it. Right. I mean, like personally as fathers, but as grandfathers, I don't know when it's going to happen, but I got to feel like we're fighting a fight that is needed. It's needed, and the future generation depends on us right now, dude. I mean, you can say that's cliche or however you want it. They do. The future generation depends on us right now, and your grandsons and your grandbabies. I don't want to see your granddaughters or your daughters going through any of this crap either, man. You know what I'd rather see is whether it's your daughters, your sons, your grandsons, your granddaughters. I'd like to see them have happy homes. I don't want to see them getting divorced. Yeah. Can we do away with this divorce rate? Can we remake marriage popular and get the government out of it? I think in order to make marriage what it once was and mean what it once meant, is you're going to have to get the government out of it. You're going to have to take these family courts, completely break it down and say, get all these incentives out of here. Yeah. Get them out. This is the movement. This is the family movement right now. You are living through it. You are part of it, whether you like it or not. This is the time for family courts to reform, CPS to reform, new laws to come into play. You are the movement and the voice right now.
That's what people just don't understand. Like, I know we're not getting like hundreds of thousands of views every morning when we come on and do these shows. I got a lot of tricks up these sleeves that you hadn't seen yet. So this is an exciting year. This is an exciting year, and I can't wait for you guys to be a part of it, because there's people that have watched us from the very beginning to where we've gotten now, and I think we've accomplished a lot in a very little time. But there is some stuff coming up this year that I do believe is going to pop this movement full blast, and I'm going to remember the ones that was here today. I know your names. I talk about you all the time. You see me when I put your comments and stuff up. I'm going to remember them, because I believe this thing is going to be popping sometime soon, and it's taking advantage of that, getting the conversation out. If our movement would have been ready when the Johnny Depp case went down, holy crap, man, are you kidding me? That was the greatest opportunity ever. Yep. Yes, you need to buy 3. You need to buy 4. And if you act now, you can buy 5 for the same price.
Yeah.
Maybe we could come down on this shipping if you buy so, if you get 6, 7, who will buy 10? Give me a 10, give me a 10, give me 11. I don't know. You think you could do the auction era? Have you ever tried auctioning, Robert?
I've tried it, but I can't talk that fast.
You can't.
I don't understand number 1. No, okay, over here number 2. Okay, over number 3. Do I hear $100? Do I hear $200? Yeah, no.
Dude, can I tell you a quick cool story, guys? Is unrelated to this. Me and Robert do the cars and stuff. My mom's preacher actually used to play in Elvis's band. And one of the gifts that he got back then, right before Elvis died, was a pink Cadillac. So come to find out, he was on an episode of Storage Wars with that pink Cadillac that he got from Elvis. Dude, how cool is that? Could you imagine what one of those would be worth now, knowing that Elvis owned that Cadillac?
A lot, especially right now.
God.
I mean, I can look it up real quick.
Okay. I don't think he's selling it, by no means. But I tell you, like, getting to hear the stories of knowing the man behind the scenes, there's a lot of people that put bad stuff out there about Elvis. It was definitely a different time. But he would talk about just the stuff that he would give away to people, man. Like there was one time he went and bought a whole car lot, and he went into the poor side of town and just started handing out the keys, saying, here, those are people. Like, not only did his music change the world, but how he affected so many lives. I think when he died, I forget how many families that he had bought them houses there in Memphis and was paying their bills and stuff. That would be the type of person I would want to be if I had some money. And you know what? He was almost bankrupt. I mean, he was almost broke when he died from doing stuff like that. And he had a lavish lifestyle, yes, but he shared it with people because he knew what it was like to come from poverty. That was just one of those stories talking about the cars. I want to see that pink Cadillac. I do.
So it says the experts value the car at over $500,000. Yep. For a pink Cadillac. 57 pink Cadillac was up for auction not too long ago.
That belonged to Elvis?
Yeah.
That seems
so it said about $500,000.
Well, so there's one that was very iconic, and that was his mom's. He bought her a pink Cadillac, because they grew up in the poor side of town. Crazy, dude. When we went to Graceland last year and I got to take my daughters, we stopped in Tupelo, Mississippi, where he was born. His house was the size of my studio, 400 square feet. Tiny. It had a tiny little bedroom, and then they had a tiny little kitchen, and he slept there on the floor next to his parents. But they were so poor in that area, they ate something called, what was it called? I can't even remember. It was it's a cheeseburger that half of the cheeseburger is bread, and they mash it together, and then they fry it. Man, it was crazy to see how they went from that. But what he did with that money a little bit later on just kind of blows my mind, hearing some of those stories. But that was just wanted to share something different right before we get off the podcast.
A cheeseburger sounds good right now, though. I'm going to go have one.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, guys, we will see you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern. Please join us. We're going to talk about some fantasy football. Robert, who are you pulling for this year in the college football?
I was going to be funny and throw out like a team, but I have no idea.
What about the NFL?
The only reason I know is Cowboys is because I'm in Dallas. So I don't watch football or anything like that. So
I bet you I know who the Texas Family Law Foundation pulls for.
Who's that?
The Packers. All right, guys, we'll see you tomorrow. Hey, everybody, Eric Carroll here. Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of Dad Talk Today. While we fight for you, we would ask for you to please help fight for us. Like, subscribe to our channel, and ring that bell so you get notifications every time we go live. There's also Super Chats, patreon.com/Dad Talk Today, and other ways you can support our channel. Thank you for being here, and we will see you next time.